still think God exists because they want you to spend your hard-earned money on stupid churches? I'm going to tell you something. There is no God.
And the guy behind the counter was so blasphemous in speaking to a customer, he kept blaspheming God's name, so I couldn't help it. I butted in and said, "Excuse me, is this a religious meeting?" I says, "I'll get you one of my books." I went into my van and got a book called God Doesn't Believe in Atheists. Proof the atheist doesn't exist.
There's no chance that we can survive. I mean, 70 million people every year are brought into this earth. What are they doing? Sucking up our resources. There's too many people, so what do? Just keep them around? Let's kill them! Let's get rid of them! Good! Thank you! I mean, that's my plan. That's what I want to do. Let's just clean the world. So maybe the rest of us can sustain a little bit of life.
Hey, kid.
Yeah?
What are you reading there?
A book?
Oh, yeah? Don't you know books are bullshit? Your parents are full of shit, and your teachers are full of shit. Here's the only thing that matters, all right? You ever see one of these? You pull this back, you pull the trigger, use it on your parents, because they're full of shit. You use it on yourself last, okay? Grab it, now fucking get out of here.
I want you to change the world. Don't think it'll change peacefully or you can do it alone. You need to kill the rich. I'm going to tell you something. There is no God. There was never a God. You're going to die, you're going to go on the ground, and that is it.
So what is the biggest gamble? I mean, what are the highest stakes? It is to say there is no hell. And if you're wrong and you go there, you're going to lose your most prized possession. You're going to lose your very soul.
Have you ever thought about it? I mean, really, what is the purpose to life? Why are we here? Where did we come from? For that matter, where are we going to go when this life is over? In this seminar that talks about the age of the earth, Dr. Hovind gives solid evidence to show that this earth is not billions of years old. In fact, the evidence points towards a literal 6-day creation, like told about in Genesis chapter 1.
You know, we've been teaching kids they're nothing but an animal, and today a lot of them act like animals. Even Barbara Reynolds figured it out. She said, your kids go ape in school? Here's why. He's being taught evolution. Guess what, Johnny? You're an animal and share a common heritage with earthworms. You mean I'm just an animal? Okay. Have you ever stopped and thought that possibly what we're teaching the kids is maybe affecting how they behave? What you believe determines how you behave. Kids are taught today, you know, that you're just an animal. The rock music these days is all full of death and destruction and blood. Well, the Bible says, they that hate me love death. Kids are taught today there are no absolutes. I was in a debate one time and this professor said, Hovind, there are no absolutes. I said, are you absolutely sure? Blew his little brain. Now hold on a minute. How can I be absolutely sure? There's no absolutes. I was speaking in a public school in Pennsylvania a couple years ago, and this kid sat on the second row, and he said, Hovind, I'm an atheist. There's no God. I said, are you sure? He said, I'm sure. I said, well, let me ask you a question, son. I said, do you know everything? He said, oh, no. I said, okay, well, good. I said, do you think maybe you know half of everything? He said, no. I said, okay, well, let's just pretend for a few minutes that you know half of everything. Would it be possible then for God to exist in the other half you don't know? Brand new thought rattled around in his brain for a while. Got lost, I'm sure. I said, by the way, son, if you're an atheist, let me ask you a simple question. How do you tell right from wrong? Ask an atheist that question sometime. How do you tell right from wrong? He said, that's easy. I decide what's right and wrong. He said, I'm the God of my own universe. I said, I'm glad to hear about that, son, because I am going to shoot you in 5 minutes. He said, you can't do that. I said, oh, yeah, I can. You see, I am the God of my own universe, and I decided it's fine for me to shoot you. You see where that logic would lead in a hurry? If every man did that which was right in his own eyes, like the book of Judges says. Serious problems for society, big time. How do you tell right from wrong? Simple question to ask an evolutionist. They don't have a way to tell. I mean, maybe Osama bin Laden should decide right from wrong. Huh? Maybe Bill Clinton should decide right from wrong, if he has any idea where to find it. I mean, how do you tell right from wrong? Simple. It's real easy to tell right from wrong. Thus saith the Lord. Now see, that is absolute. And the Lord said, Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. Some people either don't know what God says, or maybe they just don't care what God says. But God says, don't do that, okay? Now, if you did it in the past, okay, say, God, I'm sorry, that was dumb, and don't do it again, all right? Because if you're going to have billions of years, you're going to have death before sin. Now you have a heresy. And it's heresy. It's not heresy to believe the earth is billions of years old, but it's heresy to put death before sin. That's a clear heresy. Okay? The Bible says death reigned from Adam to Moses. By man came death. In Adam all die. Who cares about the age of the earth? Well, for one thing, the credibility of Genesis is at stake. Because the average person reading that book is not going to find billions of years in there. So the question is real simple. Can the average person read the Bible and understand it, or do we have to have some guru tell us what it means? Secondly, the credibility of Jesus is at stake, since he quoted Genesis 25 times. And just about every other book in the Bible refers to the book of Genesis. It's an important topic. And the evolutionists really care. If you take away billions of years, their theory looks real silly. Jesus said, had you believed Moses, you would have believed me. He wrote of me. Well, the Bible clearly teaches about 6,000 years. Let's see what the scientific evidence says. In 1999, the world's population crossed over the 6 billion mark. In 1985, there were 5 billion people on planet Earth. In 1800, there was 1 billion people here. Everybody agrees there were about 1 billion people around 1800. And everybody agrees the population is growing rapidly. But the world is not overcrowded. Don't fall for that overcrowded propaganda going around the schools. The world is not overcrowded. The whole world's population today, all 6 billion people, would fit inside Jacksonville, Florida. Twice. That little city has 25 billion square feet. The world's not overcrowded, folks. Have you driven across Nebraska? Or Kansas? Or New Mexico? Or Texas? Drive across Texas. Anybody ever driven across Texas? You can go for 3 days. Are we still in Texas? Yeah, nothing out there but flat rabbits, I tell you what. The world's not overcrowded. Drive across Tennessee, for heaven's sake. It's not overcrowded. Look, if it's overcrowded where you are, move. Because there's plenty of room out there, other places, okay? Back when Jesus was here, the world's population was only about 250 million. It looks like the whole population growth curve started about 4,400 years ago. Now, if you believe in evolution, you got a problem. You think man's been here for 3 million years. In 3 million years, the population would have grown. Right now, there'd be about 150,000 people per square inch. That would be crowded. No, man's not been here for millions of years. God told Adam to replenish the earth, fill it with kids, have lots of kids, okay? He formed the world to be inhabited, Isaiah 45 tells us, okay? But we got people on the other side who think we should reduce the population of the earth. That's Satan's plan, of course. Jacques Cousteau said we need to eliminate 350,000 people a day. Ted Turner said we need a 95% decline in populations. Okay, Ted, you first. These guys for the New World Order want to reduce the population of the world to 500 million. See, Satan was told by the Lord in the Garden of Eden, you're going to crawl on your belly and eat dust all your life. Then the Lord said, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head. Satan knows someday some seed of the woman is going to bruise his head, and he's not looking forward to that. So he's decided he's going to kill every human being on the planet. Satan's goal is to kill all of humanity, to thwart God's plan. God said, fill the earth with kids, have a bunch of kids. Satan says, no, we're going to reduce it to 0. Remember when Herod wanted to kill baby Jesus in Bethlehem? What did he do? Killed all the children. Let's be sure to get the right one. Let's just kill them all. And Satan's going to try to kill every human being on the planet. Charles Worcester said, people are the cause of all the problems. We need to get rid of some of them. Bill Clinton signed the Biodiversity Treaty that said we need to reduce the Earth's population to 1 billion. They've already got the Earth divided up into regions. The red areas are for animals only. No human beings allowed. Treaty's been signed. It just hasn't been enforced yet. Coming soon, though. Peter Singer is the guy who wants to have abortions after the baby's born. You got 28 days to decide if you want to keep it. He said, Christianity is our foe. If animal rights is to succeed, we must destroy the Judeo-Christian religious tradition. Like animals have more rights than humans. Greg said the world has cancer. The cancer is man. Prince Philip, the husband of Queen Elizabeth, she's the one that invented the microwave. Never mind. Okay. Prince Philip said, if I could be reincarnated, I would wish to return to Earth as a killer virus to lower human population levels. Nice guy, Phil. There are people who want to reduce the population of the Earth. Go outside of Atlanta, Georgia, to the town of Elberton. Go north about 7 or 8 miles on Highway 77, and look off to the right. You'll see a place over there where they teach you should reduce the population of the planet. If you look off to the right, you'll see these stones over here. It looks like Stonehenge. You drive over there, it's the weirdest place, middle of nowhere. You get up and you read them, and it says in 12 languages, the 10 Commandments for the New World Order. Commandment number 1, maintain humanity under 1/2 billion. Well, now hold on a minute. There's already 6 billion people here. How do they propose to maintain humanity under 1/2 billion? Looks to me like there's going to have to be a dramatic drop in population. That's exactly what the devil wants. More on that in our college class, CSE 101. Well, regardless of what happens in the future, the population today tells us man's only been here about 4,400 years. They said it looks like there's been a genetic bottleneck. The whole population was reduced to a few thousand just a couple thousand years ago. Hey, they're getting closer. Actually, it was all reduced to 8 about 4,400 years ago. Keep studying. I tell everybody, you keep studying. When you get done climbing the mountain of truth, you find the Baptists have been sitting there all along. But if the evolution theory is true, how would you answer the 4 great questions of life? Who am I, and what am I worth? Well, if evolution is true, you're nothing important. You're just a piece of protoplasm that washed up on the beach. You're not worth a thing. Actually, you're part of the problem, you see, because you are one of the polluters of the environment. And the more of you we can get rid of, the better. See, that's normal thinking if evolution is true. Where did I come from? Well, if evolution is true, you came from a cosmic burp about 20 billion years ago. Why am I here? What's the purpose of life? Well, if evolution is true, there's no purpose to life, so you might as well have fun. If it feels good, do it. Where am I going when I die? Well, if evolution is true, you're going to the grave, and you're going to get recycled into a worm or a plant. But see, the Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, if that's true, that puts a whole different set of answers to those questions. That means we better try to figure out who God is and find out what He wants and do what He says, because He created this place, which means He owns it, which means He makes the rules. We better find out what He wants. And if you're not obeying His rules, you may be in trouble one of these days. We're going to get into more of that later.
And it dawned on me what God had used me for, the saving of a life. And you know, we're going to go out and witness of our faith. We're going to go out and preach the gospel of everlasting life. We're going to tell people about Jesus. For God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, who believes Him shall not perish, have everlasting life. And it doesn't really dawn on us what God's using us for. The Bible says, let him know that he that converts a sinner from the errors of his way shall save a soul from death and hide a multitude of sins. Man, it doesn't dawn on us, and it probably won't until we stand before God on Judgment Day. And Jesus upon the throne stands up, and the heavens flee away at His glory and His power. He takes His rod and He separates the sheep from the goats. And you see someone you gave a tract to, someone you witnessed to, someone you brought to church, someone you called on the phone, separated into everlasting life. And perhaps then and only then will we really understand what God is calling us to do and using us for. Let him know that he that converts a sinner from the error of his ways shall save a soul from death and hide a multitude of sins. May God help us and use us and give us wisdom to preach His gospel and to be true and faithful witnesses. Let's close there in prayer.